You're here with us today to celebrate what is perhaps the greatest invention of the 20th century, the television. Right next to me is an early 80s Sanyo black and white AC/DC portable deluxe TV set. This, like all other modern televisions, is an electrical TV.
The modern television didn't just spring up overnight. It took 50 years of continuous development by numerous inventors to deliver us the TV we know and love today.
For the first big leap for television, we have to go back to as early as 1884, as this was the year that German engineering student Paul Nipkow invented the scanning discs. Now, thanks to the History Channel UK, we can see how it works.
That's right.
Oh, tell me how it works.
Well, here you notice you've got a set of holes. In fact, there's 30 holes. As it rotates this way. The lines come vertically up, one after the other.
So each hole corresponds to one line on the screen.
That's right.
And then the next one gives you the next bit.
That's right.
And you build up the whole picture. 30 holes, 30 lines.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah.
Off we go then.
Okay, so we're going to show Stooky Bill.
Yes. I'll switch on over here.
So this is the camera. This is the transmitting end. We're now in the studio with the dummy here. And then I'm going to go up to the other end where we're going to receive the pictures in our sitting room. Oh, it's brilliant.
Now let's have a look at some of the key dates in television history. 1894 was the year when Charles Francis Jenkins invents the first movie projector machine, which he named the Fantascope.
In 1922, Vladimir Kozma-Zarofskin invents a television transmission tube he calls the iconoscope.
1924 and 1925 were two very important years for television, as two people publicly demonstrated a working mechanical transmission. American inventor Charles Jenkins invented the radiovision. This was a radio with a special attachment which transmitted images onto a mirror.
Scottish-born John Logie Baird transmitted the first moving image, which was a ventriloquist dummy's head, based around Paul Nipkow's scanning disc.
Now let's go to the Bradford Museum of Photography, Film and Television and listen to what the curator, Ian Baird, has to tell us about his grandfather, John Logie Baird, and other famous inventors who were involved in making television possible.
The first person to actually develop a television image that was recognizable was my grandfather, John Logie Baird, and this was in January of 1926. He invited 40 members of the Royal Institution to his laboratory to see a 30-line television image, which was vertically scanned, and they took turns sitting in front of the camera, and they could recognize their colleagues, see their faces. They could make expressions, change their expressions, and this was recognizable. And this globally was generally recognized as the first demonstration of television, seeing at a distance by radio. Well, I think it depends how you define television and how you define the word invent as well. I mean, if you consider invent to get a recognizable television image, then I think you could say it's my grandfather. But if you consider television, true television, to only be electronic television, and you don't think mechanical television is actually TV, then Philo Farnsworth demonstrated electronic television earlier than pretty much anybody else. And what he did was he made tremendous breakthroughs in broadcasting. He had a series of television stations broadcasting a mechanical television service. So you could tune in, you could buy a television kit in the mail and actually watch something that was transmitted way back in 1928 on Charles Francis Jenkins' service, which was called Radio Movies. And some of it was just silhouettes, but after a while he figured out how to get gradations of light and shade, so you got recognizable images on his system. And I believe he corresponded with John Logie Baird as well, so they were exchanging notes directly and indirectly in the field of television.
Now, the same technology John Logie Baird used to make his TV was the foundation and basis behind the first film projectors.
But even though there was a lot of innovation within the field of mechanical television early on, by 1931 nearly all TV sets were electrical.
At the time, the true inventor of electrical television was hotly debated. Let's have a look at these two competitors.
Vladimir Zworykin, a Russian-born American inventor working for Westinghouse Electric Corporation, applied for a patent for an electrical television based around the recently developed cathode ray tube, also called the Braun tube after inventor Karl Braun, in 1923.
Philo Farnsworth, a teenager experimenting in his parents' basement in Utah, built and displayed the very first electrical television set in 1927. Due to a lack of funding, he could not afford to apply for the patent until he sold his design to a German company in 1934.
Zworykin, now working for RCA, who owned America's radio service, was unable to demonstrate a working version of his now updated television until 1931. He used a new type of cathode tube developed by Hungarian inventor Kálmán Tiányi.
RCA, now in control of America's television service, tried to sue Farnsworth for use of their electrical television patent, which Zworykin received in 1928.
Unable to prove Zworykin's original design had ever or could ever be used for a television set, RCA lost the suit, closing the debate on the origin of electrical television. The basis of Farnsworth's design was still being used up until the end of the 20th century.
Now let's go back to Bradford to see the second half of the interview with Ian Baird, in which he explains the early days of colour TV.
On my right here, this is the world's oldest surviving colour television picture tube. And colour television, we think, starts 1967 with BBC Two Colour in Wimbledon. But actually it dates back into the 20s with mechanical techniques. And then it was tried by John Logie Baird in the 40s using a completely electronic display. So there are no moving parts here. And you can see it's all glass and it's got two sort of protrusions. These are the electron guns, and you're familiar with TV sets with the cathode ray tube. There's usually that bump at the back where the cathode ray gun is. That's what's on here. So you've got a two-color system, and inside this glass sphere is where the screen is. And the screen is basically a clear circle of a clear disc of mica, which is a transparent plastic. If you think of, you see it in retail a lot when you're buying something that's coated in clear plastic. Well, mica is just a flat sheet of that. And they coated it on both sides with phosphor. And on one side was blue-green phosphor, which is a chemical substance. And then on the other side is a reddish-orange phosphor. And you can see through it when these phosphors are hit by electrons, because what the electrons do coming from these guns is makes them into a color television image. And so you've got one color on one side, the other color on the other side. And if you look through either side of the tube, you'll see the two colors combined using a technique called additive color to see a fairly convincing color television image. Not just red, green, blue, but actually just with the two colors, you can actually get quite a convincing color image. And this was looked at by a television committee created during World War II that was deciding what television would be like after the war. And they actually decided to have this system. But because post-war austerity was so severe, and because my grandfather died in 1946, there was no one to champion the cause for color television. So the project shut down, and it was carried on in the United States by companies like CBS and RCA. And color television wouldn't really return to the UK until the mid-50s with some experiments at Alexandra Palace, and then broadcasts wouldn't begin until 1967.
Since the introduction of colour TV, there have been many more advancements for television. Demands for quality brought cable and satellite services.
The desire for quantity brought digital television, high definition, and now 3D. The internet gave us on demand, the ability to watch whatever you want, whenever and wherever you like.
The television, so greatly described by Homer Simpson as a teacher, mother, secret lover, has become the focal point in the modern-day household.
Thank you for helping us remember the forgotten pioneers of what seemed to be an impossible pipe dream. This is the history of television. What was the world of tomorrow today?